What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Paladins Premier League and new face on the desk here. It's Aggro, joined by Pretty Hair. Hey, what's up, man? Gotta say, nice jacket.
Hey, man, I really think it looks better on you.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I don't know. I think it's we both have the pink undertones, though. I think that we're on the same page there. We're gonna be on the same page all day long. I'm joining the Paladins team today since Rain Day is away at E3. You hope you'll be back soon enough and you won't have to deal with me anymore. But if you want to deal with me a little bit more, maybe you could come to DreamHack and get your tickets there. It's November 16th through the 18th, highresexpo.com. All your favorite Paladins casters will be there. All your favorite Smite casters will be there. All your favorite players will be there unless they don't qualify, but we don't talk about that because if they're your favorite players, they're going to qualify. You don't have to worry about it. That's how this works around here. Yeah, exactly. PPL overview is what we got coming up for you next. It's what we got basically for you all year long leading up to that HRX. We're in the middle of the summer split right now, working towards that summer LAN, and a couple of teams that we're seeing today we're likely to see there in Fnatic and Navi.
Yeah, definitely in contention, as they tend to be. Here's our schedule for the rest of the week. We are on, of course, Thursday in the Europe, headed into the 2 best-of-5 matches we've got for you today. And North America will be, of course, tomorrow, if you're unfamiliar with. It's kind of a recent schedule change for us. That's mostly how you guys operate in the SPL.
Yep.
Let's head over to the schedule, though, and talk about Fnatic, Navi, those two teams that you were just mentioning. Normally top 2. It's what we've come to expect from them. Fnatic still on an undefeated run, completely undefeated this year in online play.
Wow, 4-0 right now in the summer split. Navi's got their doubleheader today, and that's going to be an interesting matchup later on against NIP, of course. A little bit of some familiar faces between those two teams, but we'll see that in a little bit. And as we were talking about, Fnatic is sitting up top at 4-0. Navi at 2-1 alongside Ninjas and Pajamas. Virtus Pro still trying to play catch-up right now in Europe. Splice not having a good time so far in the NA side of things.
No, they are 0 and they're going on 0-24 since the inception of the Paladins Premier League.
Hey, I will say, coming from Smite, our Splice team did not do well during the spring split. They're in like second place right now in the summer split. So maybe they just need a little bit of more time in the oven. You know?
For my money, exactly that. For my money, they've been constantly changing rosters. It hasn't been consistent for more than 3-4 months for the most part, right? And I don't think Magic's just going to happen in that amount of time. I don't think there's 5 players out there that are going to dethrone the kings of North America in 3 or 4 months.
Sure, fair enough. It takes some time in order to get it working. Well, let's get over to what we're going to be talking about today and the matches we're about to see. We'll start with Navi. This team sitting at 2-1, has a lot of talent on this roster. I mean, someone like me, who I'm usually paying attention to Smite, I know almost everyone on this entire roster.
Yeah, and looking at Phoenix, who's kind of was the newest member of this roster until the masked man Lazy came in. We have pictures of him. I don't know why he's blacked out.
But he's mysterious now.
Longtime veteran of the scene. The big talking point for now Sincere is the fact that he has kind of moved from this off-tank role to this flex. So not only can he still be there off-tank, but he can move with gusto to characters like Shaolin, like Leon, like Cassie, and have an incredible impact. And he's a guy that's very self-critical, right? Very humble as well. You know, he always plays pretty well on DPS, but he's always the only answer we ever get out of him is got to play better. Got to play better. There's so many incredible EU DPS players. I've got to be better if I want to keep up. But frankly, for my money, he's never not shown up on the DPS. That being said, it is kind of those 3 characters, Shaolin, Cassie, Leon. Outside of that, we haven't really seen him operate.
So he's looking for those longer range sort of damage characters instead of trying to get into the thick of things with some of the flank characters. But that seems to be fairly prevalent right now at a lot of these flex guys, right, is those long range damage dealers.
Yeah, the things like the Cassie, the Shaolin, obviously everything's somewhat map dependent, but you're right. I mean, Cassie Shaw can do okay for mid-range stock. When he goes close range, it's got to be all in with like a Heat Haze, an Ultimate, a Withdraw Stealth, something like that. If you're familiar with Realm Royale, that's how I've been justifying, right?
Man, already.
Playing Hunter, I'm more or less practicing my Shaolin, right? So I'm staying sharp. I'm staying ready for Paladins as well.
Know.
But the gameplay, yeah, it can get a little up close and personal at times, but you're right. For the most part, Phoenix stays back. He hits those shots, and he doesn't have to do anything crazy.
Well, he's going to have to do pretty well overall. Maybe not crazy, but if they want to take down Fnatic, it's not going to be an easy task. This team, as you mentioned, undefeated so far in online play in this season of the Paladins Premier League. This team is just stacked.
All year long, they have been crushing it on the online phase, Navi included. They're always very, very competitive games. It's almost always a best of 5. All of the games outside of each team's like power pick map are 4-3s. But it's just this team is so incredible, and the style that they like to play, is one that spaces you out, right? They play a lot of 3 DPS. They like to get you in ISO situations, and their players are just so good that you can't beat them in those situations. And that's what makes them so difficult to beat, because not only can these guys play literally anything in the roster, but the fact that their style forces these 1v1 scenarios with some of the best players in the world, it needs to be a team like Navi to beat them. Unless you have the talent to match them, you simply won't scratch the surface.
And it's going to be a difficult task for them. I mean, even just looking at the damage numbers from those 2 graphics, right? I mean, it was Fasheko's damage over 73,000. Talking about how Phoenix has done very well since he moved to the flex role, but his damage is still below 60,000 on average. So you know Fasheko is going to be bringing that type of damage and things like that. Do you expect any particular picks to be heavily, prioritized between these two, just based on their own playstyles?
You know, Eevee is one to watch out for because of Fasheko, actually, and Fnatic is one of the teams that brings him in without hesitation. For my money, best Eevee in the world, I think, hands down. I don't know if anyone would have a really great argument to argue that against me. But looking at a team like Navi, they're working it in, but they're still figuring it out. They have guys like Mutu, who is primarily a hit scan player, so things like Drogos, Eevees, Bomb Kings, things like that, he tends to stay away from, but they've been changing. They've been evolving. They've been working those into the lineup more and more, and that's the biggest thing that I think Fnatic has hung over their head, is we have this incredible world-class blaster player that is so excited to play these picks and so good at these picks. Navi's always had a good blaster, right? But they've never had that guy that's like, yes, I got Bomb King, or oh, I got Drogos, it's over. Like, that's what they, I think, need to have be able to have the confidence to take that away from Fishy and maybe throw him off balance.
Well, let's see when we get into picks and bans if that's what happens. But first, map selection for this match. First up is going to be Jaguar Falls between Navi and Fnatic. Certainly a map where those blasters can do excellent work. It feels like Bomb King is someone that can basically be played on any map at any time most of the time.
For the most part, it has to be a little bit of a style switch for a lot of guys. The better you are at hitting the in-hands, the longer range you can play. But it's a close race between Bright Marsh and Jaguar Falls, but either one of these could be considered his best map.
Well, Maeve going to be first ban. Not one of those blasters, but certainly one that can bring a lot of damage in her own right. It's just that ultimate as well shuts down so much communication in the middle of team fights. It's so difficult.
Xbalanque ult. You know it. You love it.
Trust me, we're in the middle of the X-Ball, the darkest X-Ball timeline right now in Smite. I've been seeing a lot, or not seeing a lot, I suppose, is the point. Cassie is going to be that first pick. Likely could be for Phoenix here.
Really?
If that's where they're going.
It's very important for them because of its flexibility. Mutu can play this. Creatives can play this. Phoenix can and probably will play this. But it's just that slight element of we're guessing where this is going to go.
There is a blaster. Drogo's there for Navi as Fnatic went with Inara and Buck. Terminus alongside it, so plenty of point presence with that Terminus.
You have a tough decision here, Genos or Maldamba. Now, if you pick Genos, this makes your Buck pick stronger. Heal him through walls, he gets more damage. He doesn't have to worry about his own self-sustain, though that is great. It makes a bad problem worse. Maldamba and Nara is a great combination to point sustain, and you take that away from Navi getting it and putting it on with their Terminus. Swift Spirit's Terminus on Jaguar Falls. You know this combination.
Oh, yeah.
We ran this back in the day when you were playing that one day.
That's my bread and butter right there, folks. That's what I'm all about. The Eevee gets through, though. Bomb King was the ban for Navi. Do you think that's the call over banning the Eevee?
I think probably so here. Fishy rips people apart. It's harder to make Eevee work on this map, but again, best Eevee in the world. He will be able to do it. The thing... Whoa, hold up here. Talus is actually being hovered for Fnatic, and this is probably just to counterpick the Ruckus, which is not a very common pick in and of itself.
Wow.
And it is going to be the Talus. 100% for Bugsy here. Bugsy, the most flexible, so they have the best Eevee in the world. They have the most flexible player in the world in Bugsy. A lot of tools in the toolkit. I think that you're starting to get the idea here with Fnatic. Talus, incredible shred, and one of the few flanks that can go toe-to-toe easily with Ruckus. Combination with the fact he's got inbuilt anti-heal in his loadout cards, so that means he doesn't have to build Cauterize. He can go straight into Wrecker, try and deal with some of this emitter shielding.
Also has that combo with Genos that we were talking about.
Oh, yeah,
that
we also...
For that.
Isn't that funny?
We're already on top of it. Navi versus Fnatic, game one. Let's see if Navi can actually compete with the boys of Fnatic. Let's throw it over to the casters.
Hey everybody, Tigress here with Gormizer. Always great seeing Aggro get to join us on the other side of the studio.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a little refreshing, I think, just to have like that different flavor, I guess, that comes in with it. I don't know the right word for it. That's the thing that really is kind of pulling me on here. Is just he brings that different approach.
Yeah, but I feel like with these two teams,
Words
it is
are
an
hard.
age-old tale. So maybe somebody will bring something fresh, but it looks like a lot of it is them sticking to their guns with these composition. But then you see something like the Talus come out as the last pick.
This feels a lot like the kind of thing you start to see when two guys go up against each other every single time, and they're always really close to each other. I think it's one of the things we were mentioning. You know, you look at Mouse and you look at Virtus.pro. When they go up against Fnatic, the conversation is, man, well, you can't play them at their game. You got to make them play your game. You have to bring something different to the equation. And then there's Navi versus Fnatic, where it's the same thing, but at completely different reasons. It's not they're going to beat you if you play it this way. It's going to be close, and you never know who's going to win if you continue to run it this way. So you have to bring in something fresh.
And it looks like Bugsy is working into some of that anti-heal within his loadout. So having the Wrecker available right off of the bat should help against things like the Ruckus. But here we go. Navi early rotation, and all eyes are on Bugsy to see exactly who he focuses down first.
Just a lot of damage, a lot of poke on the Lazy right now, trying to keep him kind of corralled off to the side, as they did get 33% picked up right there, but all of Navi is in this one little room, which is going to be big if you can just get in there. The problem is just trying to poke them down and have that opportunity.
Yeah, they've actually been moving as a unit so far. First onto the objective, now to the side corridor, and then it's leaving up to Fnatic to decide exactly when they want to collapse upon this, sending their frontliner towards it to get that 39% and climbing. But it's just been a match so far, and Bittner looks like he wants to find a target.
So far, so good in terms of shots, but again, this point fight is happening kind of awkwardly. You can't really aggress into Navi until now. They've started to move forward. You can get in there. Bittner going to be able to pick up first blood onto Phoenix, and immediately kills start rolling through.
Yeah, that was pretty late with a double kill from Bittner in that interaction. 84%, but there's two down on both sides. Sheko, as we always love to talk about his Eevee, because it's just so clean. We've also been talking a lot about Bittner's buck, because he's been showing out on that a lot lately.
Ice Storm already charged, used up, Lazy locked in the corner, and you can see Bittner trying to get in there and get aggressive, but not able to lock him down fully, at least in terms of killing off the Terminus Phoenix. That was not the spot to be.
Lottie, and then Bittner has the buck wild, looking in pursuit of this Apex Predator. Doesn't get the last hit onto him, but it's enough to keep him off at bay as Fnatic get the first capture of the game.
That entire first round was a lot of like pokes and prods at the beginning, and then the floodgates opened, and then the bloodbath started, mainly from Fnatic, although they did trade out some kills. Right now, they've been showing a lot of really good control, and a lot of it has been Bittner already on the 6th streak with the way he's been playing it. But it's kind of that double focus. You're worried about Fsheko because Eevee on a map that, again, maybe she's not the best on, but it's Fsheko's Eevee, so you have to be worried about it. And the same thing goes for Bittner, except he's playing Buck on a map that he excels at.
These teams know each other very well. They've been competitive for a long time, so I think it makes sense that we saw more of that song and dance at the early portion of the round.
Yes.
First Blood didn't come out until 1:50 was on the clock, and when you bring up something like the Eevee where you're saying, yes, it's not always on this map, but if you have one of your most powerful picks available, as Theo and Jera actually picking up a couple kills, then you might as well bring it against what you consider to be the toughest competition in the game.
And this is also one of the maps, especially with the way this is going. I want to say this is actually misleading for the way that the set normally goes, just because this is one of Fnatic's favorite maps to go to. They have a lot of practice on it, and with a 2-0 up against Navi, you can tell they have a lot of control.
That was just right there in the end, seemed to be a bit more in their stride of putting Bittner aggressively. Fsheko had great positioning. As you can see, his ability to just gap close and punish Phoenix. Phoenix actually got burned down so quickly on a couple occasions.
Just a lot of good shots. And I think the positioning from Fnatic, there was a really just weird moments overall from Navi, which was mainly they kind of locked themselves in a room, and then Fnatic kept them locked in that room. If you walked out, you were going to eat a lot of damage. Bittner and Jera right now, no deaths to their name, and running a pretty standard loadout, as you can see on the Buck, although I think Reconstructions run at that level 4 instead of a level 3 to take 1 point away from Rapid Sustain, so just a little less overall top healing, or I guess bottom healing since you're under 50% for it, but still a lot of damage reduction.
And 5-0-4 currently. The Undead so far, alongside their support. Jera has yet to die either. There's a seismic crash and a through time and space, both coming from the side of Fnatic, but it's answered on the opposite end. A Dread Serpent and a Dragon Punch attempt. Mutu got the kill onto Thiel, but ended up falling to Bittner. Creatives is on the Cassie though, and we know he loves this pick. Maybe it's enough to take it, as they actually take down 4 members of Fnatic.
A couple of good kills there, really just kind of snowball that entire fight in favor of Navi. I was kind of waiting for a Buck Wild to come through. I feel like that could have been a turnaround for Bittner, but he held on to it, and I think that's going to be a good way for them to potentially jump back into this fight, especially with an Ice Storm. You have that follow-up.
Yeah, so far, so good. But here's actually Bugsy got into the middle of the action for a moment because you see that 99% overtime has settled down, and Thiel's getting aggressive, does take down Spunky. So Navi, if they can just pick off some of these other kills, though, it can't work in their favor, but overtime keeps getting reset.
Everybody is incredibly low, but they're not able to clean it up until it's just slightly too late. Double kill looking for 3 here from Fish Echo as he's going to continue aggressing, but they still grab the point on Navi.
The fact of the matter is, it's great stuff. Fish Echo with a nice succession of kills there. Jared picking one up too. But the people that were around getting the kills are not the ones that were able to stand comfortably alongside Terminus and Ruckus on the point.
Yeah.
So that's why you saw the kind of ticking of overtime going back to full a few, but in the end it was Navi that came out on top.
And honestly, what we're seeing here, I think, is just genuinely impressive from Fnatic to have the leap and bound that they've had. I mean, a lot of the time this matchup feels a lot more just kind of like one guy takes a punch, you reel back for a second, and then he just swings right back at you. It's just 2 Titans continually fighting. And this time right now, Fnatic are off on the right foot. They've been able to get a good couple of hits in early, but the problem is, you know, once comeback mechanic comes into the equation, you can't take that hit. You have to be able to kind of roll with it and keep yourself right there in the action.
And look at the payload.
Oh yeah, it hasn't
kind
moved.
of in the same spot. Navi
They've actually taken the wheels off of it.
Yeah, they just parked it. They put the emergency brake on, and they can't figure out. Oh, okay, somebody figured out how to move it back. Said, I know how to work stick shift.
That was Ruckus.
Yeah. He's like, all right, guys, I'm the one that knows machinery. Let's do it. But Fnatic did buy themselves a lot of time as we're approaching the final minute of this push potential before overtime. Though a couple of them have fallen. You have Inara off the table, and Bittner finally just getting a little bit of 12.
So far, I think this is the most patient I've seen Fnatic. It's one of those areas where, okay, we're not going to aggress. We're not going to go into them because now they're in the area where actually Navi might have the better fight, especially with the Jogos. It's nice and open. But if you let them come into this archway just a little bit, you can jump on in and start getting some damage right there. Phoenix Mutu immediately eliminated.
That was a wonderful wall, I have to say. Fisheko gets a double kill, and everyone is putting in their part on Fnatic. You saw the way that Navi, their access point to safety was just completely blocked off by Theo, and he said, all right, Bittner, hey, Fisheko.
Go.
Hey, look, there's guys there, and they can't move, so yeah, do the thing.
It was just the green light, right? You not only are listening for the call, but once that wall goes up, especially like even right here, okay, they have to change their path. They cannot fight you. They cannot run from you. You have locked them into a cage, and because of the nature of the game, you're going to kill them in that cage as well. Find yourself a defense, put yourself up, 3-1.
You know, Theo has said in the past that frontline play is his favorite. When you play that well, why wouldn't it be? Fisheko loves his Eevee. Well, yeah, you look at this double kill here and that excellent mobility to be able to secure these kills, and the heal up from Genos doesn't hurt too much either.
A lot from Fisheko, and again, not a map that Eevee is really known for on Jaguar Falls, but still pulling out the 7, 4, and 6. Standing up there with Bittner's 10, 5, and 7. A lot of the kills coming out of them, but it's the setup when it comes down to it. Like Bugsy, Theo, they don't have to bat these fantastic slash lines. They just have to say, here's a wall that's going to keep them locked in for you. You just have to do damage.
And I love the way that Fisheko, just when you look at the loadout too, it makes sense why he's able to so consistently stay in these fights for so long. And really capitalized by increasing distance of blink and things like that, so his reach has just been phenomenal. And
killing Frost is the big one for me. Just cooldown of Sword going down 20%. A lot of Eevee is mobility. It's not necessarily the damage she can output, although she does do a hefty chunk per shot. But being able to get in, get out of these engagements is what gives Fisheko that next level step.
Ice Storm right on the side, gets hit with the Dread Serpent, and suddenly the flankers are bye-bye for Fnatic. But on the side of Navi, 46% gonna have to stop for the time being as they wait for their members to respawn.
Mutu, 460 health, but still alive, and Spunky, the one really kind of driving this one for Navi right now. That Dread Serpent was perfect, but still a couple of kills and just support coming down from him on this Maldamba, making sure things go their way. Here comes the Dragon's Punch, and I mean, there's a lot that can go wrong with that. Mutu actually forced to run away.
Didn't manage to find the target that he wanted after that, and Luckily for Navi, Theo being forced off of the point after taking too much damage has bought them a lot of time as it's 89%, but because he didn't die, the rest of the team's able to rotate in with a lot more comfort and apply that pressure to Lazy, who has been doing a great job of sticking around, right? And using his cooldowns very effectively, but Fnatic are looking for a way to poke holes.
89% here for Navi, and they do have comeback mechanics, so they're still capturing this at an enhanced rate compared to Fnatic, and they have to sit on there. They have to eat that damage. The reanimate comes through. They're looking to try and kill off this Terminus one more time.
60%, gonna be surpassing that. But on Navi, ooh, they lose the Ruckus. They lose a lot of that pressure, and Fnatic are making that comeback mechanic seem like it was non-existent as they actually shred through Lazy right now, and Fnatic take victory in game number 1 with the 4-1.
And the end of that was just good old-fashioned zone. There wasn't really anything that they did, I want to say, too special. There was a lot of little like micro things that go into it, just pressuring out the Terminus, pressuring out the Drogos, and just making sure that Navi feel too nervous to actually get aggressive in that fight.
It wasn't a populated kill feed, and I just liked the way that Fnatic was able to rotate in and out, know exactly how long they could stay in the fight before they were forced to back off to heal themselves up without losing too much objective control, especially considering that comeback mechanic was working against them.
I'm honestly kind of curious. Again, I feel like this is a little misleading as a way to start it off because Jaguar Falls is like Fnatic's best map when it comes down to it. So going into the future, I'm wondering if we're going to see a little bit more out of Navi, if that was just a bad draft, bad play, or if Fnatic have really just turned themselves up, not even to 11, but further.
Well, Fnatic and Navi is an age-old tale, but I want to know at the desk, do you think they're looking the same as some of the past sets we've seen with them, or is it a little new flavor?
Well, it all feels kind of new to me, to be fair. I guess that's a better question for this man right here. Look, that game, Fnatic just looked very dominant to me, and it all started with Fasheko on the Eevee.
Yeah, we watched a lot of him. Is your head okay? Are you cross-eyed at all?
I took some Dramamine. I'm good.
Okay.
Like, I was feeling a little motion sick for a little bit, but like, what?
You'll get used to it.
Man, how do you track this? Like, this doesn't look fair to me.
And frankly, that's part of the problem, Aggro, is they didn't have any hit scan threat, which is typically the best way to deal with it. Things like Leon, things that have auto-aim. That's really the only way to swat this fly out of the sky. Other ways you could see are in the ways of ultimates. You see, as soon as the sound cue for Blink was heard, Spunky hit him with a Dread Serpent. That was one of his deaths, but that's available once, maybe twice around, right? It's not a consistent enough answer, and I don't think that's what Fnatic or Navi had. So I look at what could they have done. They could have probably put Phoenix on Leon, but then that goes back to why Fnatic is such a hard team to draft against. Because then you got to give them Cassie, and it's like, well, Bugsy can probably play this Cassie for them, and he's going to abuse us on that. Probably better to just have him on Talus. It still looks pretty good there. I think Fishy, just the amount of freedom he had and the amount of distraction he was causing was really allowing Bittner then on Buck. It just kind of goes down the list here. He gets so much damage off. I'm not used to seeing Buck top damage against double frontline compositions.
Right.
That's not something normally a matchup he would want to square up against and just start chunking away at frontliners. But I think it's just because no one was really looking at him. They were worried about Fish.
And that Inara as well for Fnatic just got to stay on point forever. I mean, when Fasheko and Bittner are just flying all over the map, you kind of forget that there's an Inara sitting on point that you've got to deal with at some point.
Right, they lose that fight, but because Thiel and Gera are able to just keep themselves rooted there is comeback mechanics, right? So they're capturing 4% per tick incredibly. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is incredibly faster and hard to deal with to the point where you lose that one fight, and normally that's it. But because of Inara, because of Thiel's prowess on this map, he stops the bleeding, gives Fnatic a second chance, and that's all they need.
Well, let's see if Navi gets to take advantage of their second chance as we take a look at the maps that we'll be seeing in game number 2. You heard Gore say it. I mean, Fnatic, Jaguar Falls, one of their best maps, so maybe Navi will have a little bit better luck on Serpent Beach this time around.
This one's obviously way more open. Lines of sights are longer, but not, Timber Mill long or anything like that.
Right.
Possibility for a Kinessa here is still there, but Bugsy vocally doesn't really like the new scope changes. Basically what they did, more tunnel vision, smaller FOV when you're in your scope. He's not a fan of it. Less peripheral vision. You can't see threats coming at you, and that's very important on maps like this because it's already a stretch to be running that pick here. It's already a bit of a risk. As you can see, a lot of high ground mobility already banned out. Maeve's gone, Buck's gone, Eevee's gone, of course Makoa. He doesn't have any high ground mobility, but he does have the ability to yoink you off of it.
That's true. He doesn't. You don't need mobility as Makoa because you make them mobile to you. immediately. Khan gets through, though, and Fnatic immediately snatch it up. There is an answer there in the Leon, but Eevee already banned away by Navi, so this is why do we see this Leon pick so early here?
I think for the Drogos, there's that's probably the big one left still on the board in the blaster category, right? But I don't think Fnatic are ready to take that bait. They're bulking up on the front line here. Leon, definitely a very versatile pick, kind of a not quite a jack of all trades, but she's very solid at what she does. She has inbuilt anti-heal, but not in her loadout, in a legendary talent.
Sure.
Most of the loadout cards cap out at 75% anti-heal. Her talent takes her all the way to 90%, so she truly does not need Cauterize at all. She can build straight into Wrecker here to deal with what little shielding there are, but for me, I think this Leon is really to just try and ward off of Fisheko Drogos.
Well, it does so successfully, but the Jhin lock-in for Fnatic will round out their draft. I love that Navi pick up the Maldamba, though, because I'm looking at Khan and Nara, and I'm like, man, if there's a Maldamba alongside that, how do you ever get Fnatic off the point, even with 90% anti-heal?
I don't know.
The Terminus Maldamba combo should be pretty good here for Navi.
I think it is, and you've got Lazy. He's loves to go fast. When Wormjets was it was never really the meta for Drogos, but that's what he played just because he likes to go fast, I guess. Used to be an EV player, so he's comfortable moving around quickly. Playing Terminus now, so he's building nimble. He's getting his swift spirits here. I think Navi have done a good job with this draft and will absolutely stand a chance.
All right, we'll see if they do a little bit better than 4-1 here on Serpent Beach. Throw it over to the casters for game 2.
Let's go fast, guys. I like going fast. Terminus likes going fast in this composition, but I don't know how fast the game's going to be.
Probably not. I'm going to say it's not going to go that fast at all. I think this one's going to be a lot closer just because I think Terminus and the way that Navi drafted this not only feels more comfortable for them, but it feels very good on Serpent Beach. It's one of those areas that Terminus can excel just because you're kind of locked in an area with him, and I think he's a really good, I want to say like counter, not necessarily like a hard counter, but someone who can deal with Inara very well.
It's always difficult to predict exactly how these games are going to go between Fnatic and Navi, but Navi also against teams that aren't Fnatic, they've dropped a game here or there against rosters that you wouldn't expect them to. So sometimes they need a little bit of that figuring out time, and with this composition, having Mutu with his vertical mobility, and Phoenix loves bringing out the Leon once in a while, it could be what they need to tie up this set.
A lot of Cauterize coming out. Theo going immediately for the blast shields, though. So he's going to be taking a little bit less damage. Although that's a little bit more confusing to me. I mean, honestly, that's specifically for Drogos. That is just specific fear. He knows exactly what's going to be hitting him. And honestly, it makes sense when you look at what Mutu's been able to do on this champion before.
It's pretty clear that Mutu will be having to focus down on Theo because he's going to have the largest objective presence, and sometimes Navi is going to have to look to him and say, hey, can you deal with this pest right now that we're just having to keep facing off against? So taking that preemptive measure as Inara here for Theo might be effective in just what he needs. But there's first blood. Bittner finally taking it onto Phoenix.
Again, taking a little bit of time, and Bittner has been staying alive just barely this entire time. Mutu's gotten him down really low, but there's not been enough follow-up. No one to get aggressive onto it, and right now that's 2, now 3 total who have fallen for Navi, and Lazy actually forced to fall back.
And Spunky not being here, that's the thing. Lazy for so long was just sitting on top of a gourd, soaking up everything that he could while facing off against Inara, but that heal potential just being completely taken off the table, though he has spawned back up. Shouldn't be long before they can get back into the fight, but Fnatic, they're already passing 70%.
And I like the way Fnatic play that point. They get that lead, they get that advantage, and then immediately you see Theo moves up as far as he can, and Khan goes in, he sits in the doorway, throws up his shield. He's like, all right, here's where I am. This is what I'm going to do. We have a healer sitting on the point so we can get the payload. We are covering all of our angles.
It's interesting. While we were going through the draft, and you and I were talking, and you made the point how Bugsy really just does play
He plays everything.
So now getting to see him on the con, and it adds this extra element where Theo taking out Phoenix right here and Bugsy taking out Lazy, but Theo, he has so many in his wheelhouse as far as frontliners, but of course you want to see him on things like the Inara and these types of comps.
Yeah.
And Bugsy, if you want to have a secondary frontline, there's so many that he can take to the table as well.
And it's one of those things, actually, even thinking back, towards our lands, talking to Thiel about, not only his play style, because asking him, you always play these front lines. Do you only ever play front lines? He's like, I practice everybody. He wants to know what they can all do, not only so he can counter, but so he knows their strengths, their weaknesses for his team. And when it comes down to it, I feel like you can rely on Bugsy and Thiel to flex around for you. Thiel's always going to be that front line, but Bugsy, I think the only thing I've never seen him play competitively is, like, supports.
Right. From what I understand from a past interview, I believe Theo was saying he really enjoys frontline, and if needed, if they did need him to play something else, and that should be the case for most PPL players, right? But you see the differences in comfort level with certain champs at this level, because even just a minor sense of unfamiliarity can be magnified when you're in a matchup as tough as this. And the fact that Bugsy can make everything feel so comfortable to him is quite impressive.
And just being able to keep control even right there. A nice shout going to be able to get his team not only healed up, but maybe a little bit more aggression as 45 seconds are left on the clock, and this payload is stuck at that last bend on Serpent Beach. So it's just notoriously difficult to get around because of this long open area over here. Shots from Phoenix are going to connect pretty much all of the time.
So will Fnatic use some of their ultimates to try and create space? Mutu actually gets the double kill. So when you're in that last 30 seconds, and now Mutu's able to take to this high ground and move forward aggressively as the rest of the team does so as well, Fnatic, it's going to be much more difficult for them to break through, and I can see a world where they just try to save their resources and not have to worry about a comeback mechanic on the opposition side during second round.
And honestly, Mutu, I think, is a really big talking point, because he's played Drogoz these last couple games, and again, has been switching away from what I would say was typically him onto a little bit more, a little bit bigger picture things, I would say, for Navi, being able to pull in champions that they wouldn't have normally been able to run, and right now, he's had some quiet games. I think that's going to be one of the bigger difference makers in how this goes.
Fnatic's moving as a unit right now, though, and Bittner, he should be able to catch up eventually. Overtime still stalling, but Lazy, he's working himself aggressively, and right now with the seismic crash, actually circles around, not going to, but ends up getting the kill actually onto Lazy as 4 members of Navi fall, and Fnatic, they might be able to push this through. Nobody else is there from Navi, and it's a 2-0 in their favor.
There are so many factors that really went into that. Part of that was just a brilliant fight from Fnatic, and honestly, the only way to really recap it would be go back and watch all of it. They use one ult for that to really open it up, but the big thing that really, I think, kind of lends them that favor is also Navi not using ults. They were like, okay, we're not going to pop Reanimate, we're not going to use the Dragon Punch, we're not going to use Scout, Dread Serpent, we're just going to hold them for the next round. We have comeback mechanic. This is a fight, honestly, coming into this, that we should win with all of the assets we have, but it's going to be difficult either way.
Because there's an argument for both approaches, right? I think Fnatic feels really good about the fact that they only had to use one ultimate and still actually got the point. Navi, they kept all of theirs. They do have comeback mechanic now, and with their damage dealers actually managing to land a lot of the shots, then they're still, if they keep in that groove right here with this fight and use their ultimates effectively, they should be able to capture this. But there's one lockdown onto Lazy, nice and early with the overpower as he gets shot right off the edge.
And that kill is so important, not just because it gets rid of their front line, but it gets rid of the reanimate possibility. He's not going to be able to come back. He just reanimate literally on top of water. I'm not entirely sure you can actually hit it. Dragon Punch going to reposition. I actually think that's big for Mutu, just being able to be in the backline, but that's a heat haze and that's a kill.
Oh, there's one. Maybe he's going to find another. Actually gets caught out by Creatives. 90% for Fnatic. 2 down, 3 down for Fnatic. Actually, as this wall goes up, Theo attempting to keep himself alive as long as possible, but Lazy, he is swinging away with that axe.
And that amount of time honestly makes a difference. Bugsy's about to go down, or at least he's low. Whether or not he dies here is going to be a big difference maker, because Fnatic, with comeback mechanic on the side of Navi, normally that means you lose this fight, you lose the point. They were just staggered out enough that they're going to be able to touch down and at least keep an overtime timer possible.
And these ultimates have been used. You saw that through time and space, and that's what actually provoked that Dragon Punch earlier, and that's at 56 and 93 to 93, 90% on the seismic crash. There's a Dread Serpent from Navi, another wall to add a little bit of an extra protection. As Lazy brings himself back into the fight, gets locked down by the Warder's Field, and you see Fasheko, he's right in the middle of the members of Navi, but keeping himself alive nicely, gets the double kill before he's taken down by Phoenix, and it's once again tank on tank, but hits to the side. Phoenix taken out, Theo gets the kill, and just enough healing to keep himself in this fight.
And he goes for the long snipe on that. It forced Creatives to roll in. The shots are going to be good. Bittner has to find it, stand on the point. Overtime goes down, and they're going to be able to capture that after a brilliant play. And I want to give all credit there, mainly to Theo, just because of his presence and his wherewithal to stay on the point the way he did.
I loved the way that he was so responsive. I think a lot of players, they look and they say, okay, there's this huge tank in my face. That's who I want to go ahead and hit with this, right? Instead, take out another threat. You had Bittner nearby as well, and you had the rest of your team to help actually facilitate and close out on the rest of the kills needed, and stayed alive just well enough with the help of Jera. So just really great execution from the team to cap that off.
And that was just everything you needed, right? Thiel recognizing, I mean, no wall. Okay, I know exactly the range of this Terminus ult. I'm going to step over here. You're not going to connect me. I have enough time on overtime that I don't need to panic. Steps forward, throws out his ult. While all of that is going on, Terminus is in this area of, I just reanimated. This should be my fight to win. Thiel's one hit. But you have damage coming down from like 3 different sources, essentially. A Khan, a Shaolin, and a Xin. All just pelting into you. Eventually, it doesn't matter who's in front of you, if it's an R or not, you're going to die.
It's not even like he was getting like burst healing or anything, right? It's just the typical Genos getting enough of that, and then in combination with the cooldowns. But with that, Fnatic's actually up 3-0 right now in this set. And some more of those ultimates, 2 of them actually online, but they lose Jera for the time being, as Navi attempts to hold. 3
kills right there. Fasheko kind of in an awkward spot. This is somewhere you could be, you know, maybe if you had the rest of your team. Unfortunately, that fight didn't go the way they wanted to. Specifically with Terminus. Lazy, there was a point where Bugsy had him in his ult. Looked like he was going to throw him off the edge, and then he didn't die. And I'm assuming he got, like, he dropped down. They didn't have the right timing on it. And then he just stayed alive. And then he was in the background. And then that was just enough havoc on its own that it kind of created, I want to say, discourse throughout Fnatic.
A lot of defensive items built into as well. So Navi, I think they're really worried about, particularly Bittner right now, who's just been rotating around. Actually, has some visibility for the time being. Phoenix so low. Pops the ultimate to actually get the kill and survive long enough to do so. Ends up going down, which I think he expected that was a possibility. But Navi, they lose 2 right now. Fnatic, without the Khan, without your Genos, and it's going to be a bit before Bittner can come back.
I mean, I was going to say 8 seconds left with what they have. This should not be an overtime crazy push. But I was thinking the same thing at the end of the last round, and then they were able to hold it and push it. So depending on Thiel here more than anything is going to be, can they continue going? Right now, very low health, has his damage reduction up, but he's still going to get taken down.
Creatives has the high ground, but it's kind of awkward where the payload is right now, attempting to get the angle on Thiel. But Mutu and Creatives both picking up a couple kills. As we move on forward, Bugsy falls as well. So, yeah, the difference during the previous round where they had actually been able to push it through, their spawn was enough where they could move as a unit back into the fight during overtime. So this was
he holds him.
And then,
oh, just barely missed it.
Oh, I see. A little sad.
I don't know if that's the difference maker in the grand scheme of things. We'll never know how that timeline goes, where Lazy dies right there. But that kept Bugsy, and I think Fasheko was right there, preoccupied. They were now focused on having to kill Lazy. Power Siphon up, he's locked in the corner, and he did not die. Or if he did, he used his reanimate. Either way, he came through, and since it's full charge, I'm assuming he was just swinging away, dealing a lot of damage and causing a lot of distraction.
So right now, we're going into the round 3-1 in Fnatic's favor, and during game 1, that was enough for them to be able to close it out. But Navi, I think, Mutu started to get things online a bit. He's got a good slash line with this streak going for him as well. Fnatic, though, lots of ultimates. Basically all ultimates on both sides at this point because the last couple are just up. But there, Khan using his immediately. Fasheko gets the kill onto Spunky. Phoenix throwing it back a little bit. Is 3 down on Navi.
Fnatic right now are playing at a completely different level. Beautiful shield comes up. Phoenix is still alive, but you're at 54 and rising percent on this point, up 3-1. You're in control. You don't have too much to worry about. Maybe Lazy, but honestly, you look like you're handling them just fine so far.
And right now, Bugsy just put so much damage into Lazy before he actually got to the capture point where he's forced to be because it's 81% on the opposite end. Here's a Dragon Punch into the face of Thiel, though, but Fnatic, they have the Heat Haze going for Bittner, and right now, Lazy's going to be the full focus of a lot of this damage.
Comeback mechanic enabled, 58%. Normally, you think, okay, we have plenty of time, but look how fast it's going up. Already at 70, and it's just been a few seconds. You have to act on this. Fnatic, this is part of the reason that things can go long for them. 93, they have to stall Lazy. They have to either get rid of him or displace him.
So Fnatic right now, I think they're just waiting for an opening. At least that feels like what Bittner's doing, and he says, okay, I'm going to try and take care of these CPS players on the side. Phoenix throws it back. The Dread Serpent and Bugsy is actually punished for it by Spunky. Phoenix with a double kill, 99% overtime, looks to be on its completion as Navi capture.
And I like the call. Fish Echo, there's two areas you can go right there, right? There's, I'm going to go in and stall this, keep it in overtime as much as possible so my team can respawn and maybe set up a defense. And there's, my life is important enough that we need to stay back. And that's exactly where he was. It's in this area where it's like, 3-2, it's not the end of the world. Even if they push this, it doesn't really affect you too badly just because you're able to keep control. There you go, 3-3. You've been winning this point on even ground the entire time. You've been able to win one comeback mechanic, and you almost won the second one. So as it is, you're not too stressed out, I'd say, as Fnatic right now.
And a bit under 2 minutes on this clock. Payload starting to move a bit, but just very, very steadily, not with any swiftness of its own. Fnatic, I think they're trying to figure out exactly where they want to set up for this next portion of this defense. Lazy takes quite a bit of damage, but nonetheless Creatives with the double kill, so holding it down nicely for Navi.
Pushing as hard as they can, and this is actually big. They're riding the momentum hard, and this is something, again, when you have a team that has been dominating the way that Fnatic has, you kind of have to catch them in that off-guard spot. You have to be able to say, okay, look, not only did we capture the point, but we staggered you. Like, we just keep kind of pushing you back every time. Once you think your feet are about to get flat on the floor again, you're going to be comfortable. We push you one more time just to make sure that you're constantly just falling back, and that's where they have them locked right now.
And currently, they have lots of ults available, but I love the fact that when they just got those 4 kills back-to-back, it was just with their regular kits. There weren't any major plays. It was just the accuracy. As Fisheko, though, on the Xin with the triple kill. He is just zoned in right now. Looks like he wants to find Mutu, but there is a full HP Phoenix right around the corner.
And there's been a lot going right. And again, I just think it goes across the board where it just says that Fnatic is a really good team, where all of their fights are won on like 3 different fronts. You have the front line that is winning his engagement. Then you have Bittner winning his on the Shaolin. And then you have Fisheko kind of, I guess, helping them win theirs by going into the back and creating his own front line for himself, where he's just like, I'm going to be all alone back here. I'm going to fight 2 of you at once, but I'm still going to be able to take that fight.
And here's actually Bittner onto the high ground. Fnatic, with this positioning, should be able to find a lot of the members of Navi, and you can see right there, Mutu, he didn't even have a moment to look up to find out what's going on. How can I prevent this from happening? Bugsy just spotted him out and punished him for it.
You know, Khan, in a long way, and depending on how you look at it for some of his kit, it's kind of like a fat Talus. Doesn't do some of the same things, but he has a very similar effect in some moments of the game. But that shout can do so much.
Why gotta be fat? Why can't he just be a bigger
okay,
Talus?
He's like Talus who hit the gym for 10 years straight.
Why you gotta call him out like that, man? We don't know what's under that armor. But we do know that Creatives has a great angle right there if they want to try and maybe get a couple picks in their favor. They do manage to get Bittner, and that's what we're talking about. If Cassie finds an angle where she can just free fire, it can be great. And there's an Enlightenment, but not going to get the kill.
This is the kind of control you need, Mutu, depending on these rockets and how they connect. Specifically onto Thiel, trying to displace him is what they need. Unfortunately, once you lose Lazy, Phoenix and Creatives, I want to say those are the expendables in that kind of moment, right? You can lose your carries as long as they get something with it, but you lose them, which loses the pressure for Lazy, which then loses Lazy. And unfortunately, in that kind of chain of events, there is no push for you. So coming through, Fnatic don't get this point. They're still up 3-2, so half a comeback mechanic is going to be 4% every other tick here for Navi on the point.
What great play from Fishy, man. I say, during the split, he's just been really zoned in.
I feel like Fnatic are in this area where, you know, when you look at G2, you know, we mentioned that Evil Eye has had to like retry out for the team. I think that's a good mindset to have, and I feel like this is one of those areas where Fnatic, as long as you kind of keep them on their toes, they're always going to be performing. But it doesn't feel like it's like a, hey, you have to retry out. It's just, you got second place last time. And that's what goes through their minds, and that's the only thing that fuels them. They do not like not being number 1. And so they are going to hold on to this as best they can.
They are hungry, and Bittner with the early heat haze right at the top, but trying to find out exactly who he wants to target on down. With Bugsy rotating, really attempting to do the same. Bittner took about half of his HP and damage. And even with the visibility from Cassie on the opposite end, I want to see how Navi's going to follow
beautiful.
up. And there's a Dread Serpent through time and space right off of the top ground as Fasheko and Bugsy pick up the kills. Bugsy with a double kill for him, and Phoenix, he finds Mutu, snipes him out of the air, and is looking for another target onto Lazy, who has to fall to the ground after that damage. Brings it back with the reanimate, but is it going to be enough to thwart Fnatic?
Right now, these slashes have been so on point. Fasheko took this fight, and even though the kills haven't all been in his favor, I want to say, I don't know how many Yomi strikes there hit multiple people, but he is just cleaning up, keeping them low. There's the Dragon Punch going in, looking for something, but Mutu forced to pull away with how much damage he takes.
No, 99% overtime just ticks back up, but 3 are gone for Navi, and Fnatic take game number 2.
Again, tail end, that fight, Fnatic make Navi play their game. They come into it, and a lot of that, I want to say again, was Fasheko. Just there were 2 or 3 of those last Yomi hits that hit 2 people, 3 people, and it's just, okay, well, here's 900 damage to your face. Here's 800 damage to your face. And then a whirl, I think, that killed off Spunky to kind of just start the ball rolling for everything there.
And I think they were being very responsive to the ultimates on the opposite end. You would see a Navi ult happen and then a Fnatic one that would kind of cancel it or anything of that sort. But that was game number 2. Fnatic is up 2-0. What do you think? Is Navi going to pull it back?
Man, Navi's got a mountain to climb, it feels like. Fnatic with another great performance. They get off to a huge lead, and Navi battles back a little bit there, extends the game, but still not enough to find the victory.
Right. It just kind of moves and counter moves, and I think whenever Fnatic is making the first move at all times, they're going to get that counter punch that's going to secure the game. They have an incredible lineup, I think, on both sides. You see there definitely at the end of that last fight, Navi get a little bit corralled. They're a little bit low mobility. There's only so many places they can afford to fight from. There's so much flexibility in Xin already with all the iframing you could do with Billow and counter. On top of this, they get Genos again to heal this man up through any amount of walls, no matter almost what distance he is away. He's such a problem for them. The bonus damage from Gara's Luminary Genos is really helping Fnatic here when you look at either Fasheko or Unbitner's Shaolin. He's hitting very, very hard. Character who can already by himself, just of his own volition and talents, get himself north of 1,000 damage. You throw a Luminary in there with the Desert Shadow, he's hitting for 1,400 off of this first arrow out of stealth.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a lot of damage. That's a big number right there for Shaolin. Look, that was impressive from Fnatic. It really is Fasheko and Bittner working together, I think, where the backline of Navi, where do you go? I mean, if you step up and try and hit on Bittner, then Fasheko's going to cut you down very quickly.
It's very hard to commit to either of these people, and probably one of the biggest parts, you know, it doesn't look this easy without some help from the surrounding cast as well. Bugsy gets probably the biggest power pick of the game. First pick Khan. First time we see him in the set for a good reason, right? You've got the Force Choke. When Navi's only running one frontliner like Terminus, even though he can come back from the dead, that's a very slow charging ultimate. He doesn't get swings off very often, so it's even slower charging. Anytime he just Force Chokes Lazy, throws him off the map, does something, it's just a pain in the ass. It's a rough day at the office for Lazy.
And then your frontline's gone, and now that's even easier for Jin to go and dice up your back line. We'll see what Navi can do in the next one as we get ready for our map in game number 3. It's going to be Stone Keep. A little bit of shorter sight lines overall. Could be easier to track down some of these flankers here.
Yeah, perhaps. And I think as a result of that, you're not having maybe this flank be as abused as heavily. High ground isn't as big of an issue. We saw a lot of that banned out on Serpent Beach. That might make it through the draft a little bit more handily. Maeve is pretty close to that. Any map you can run it on, and it's going to be incredible. So that's probably going to be banned out all day. Makoa, you know that story. Hasn't changed since 6 months ago when you last casted.
Sure hasn't.
EV, I think, is just a matter of maybe this map, this matchup in particular. However, it is a little curious to see Fnatic banning it out, given how incredible they were with it.
I mean, maybe they don't want to go for the first pick of it, you know, and leave open a lot of things on the other side. We'll have to wait and see. Buck is the selection here, which has done great work so far in this set, particularly in game 1 for Bittner, I believe, who was on that selection. It just has that enough mobility on Stone Keep where it's tough to track down, but if you get in one of those enclosed spaces with Buck, he's going to win that 1v1.
So Navi finally take away the Genos. They get the Xin combination as well. And I mean, bonus damage is bonus damage, Aggro. It's going to make any problem worse for you. It's incredible, I think, no matter who you put it on. Fnatic, thinking more about this ban, anytime I see a ban like that, it's almost like they're either picking a composition that this would be a good pick against and they just want to take it off the table, but that feels a little too telegraphed for me.
Yeah.
Another way I'm thinking about it is they are second pick, right? So not to say Eevee's a throwaway ban, but it might be a throwaway ban in this instance because they just want to keep something open, whether it is that buck. They don't want to make Navi's first pick an easy choice.
Well, it ended up being the Cassian. We'll see how well it does for them. Double front line here for Fnatic alongside Maldamba. That means that point control for Fnatic is going to be pretty strong. But on the other side, Navi has double front line as well between the Barrack and the Fernando. Do you think that the Barrack Fernando has enough damage to push Terminus and Ruckus off that point when you consider the Maldamba pockets that can happen?
It's coming down to if this Cassie and the Xin, because the way I think Drogoz can't get too far away from you on this map, Zin's going to have some opportunities to put some pressure on him. If they can keep Fasheko on this Drogoz corralled, that's going to prevent him from absolutely ripping Barrack and Fernando apart.
Well, turns out Fasheko has been a big part of this set so far, and he'll be a big part of Game 3 one way or the other. Let's throw it to the casters and see if Navi can bounce back.
I mean, Fnatic's been looking really strong through the first 2 games, but Navi's not exactly a team that wants to get 3-0.
Yeah, it's
used to it by any means.
I mean, that awkward area where it's like, man, Fnatic is scary right now, but it's Navi, right? So it's like these guys, the last time they played at LAN, the last time they even played online, they go the distance every single time. Navi was able to win a couple of those. Fnatic wins a few of them. They trade back and forth all the time. And the idea that either one could 3-0 the other, and that's even a distinct possibility, is kind of baffling to me.
And with this composition, you see a couple switches, right? Something that were on Fnatic before and now are in the hands of Navi and vice versa. And there's going to be pressure on Xin to, well, constantly apply pressure onto the enemy team. With Fasheko, you can't let him get out of hand. Bittner obviously has been working hard on the buck for a long time.
Yeah.
So this back line was so key when they're just able to kind of switch off in their focus during the previous games. And if that happens again, then Navi would be done so.
All right, so Bugsy's rocking a little bit of the new school and the old school here with this loadout. Dampener has been something that I think was on the rise for Ruckus when he lost some of that damage reduction, but still has Metal March and actually running it at 5. So that's going to be 15% damage reduction 2 seconds after missile launch, and I believe it stacks, so you can get up a pretty decent number. 30% most of the time is what it's going to be on there, but it's just enough to keep him a little bit more alive.
Navi actually chooses to rotate to the low ground side of this map instead of going for the early fight by the stairwell, and this is what's allowed them to get this early capture onto the objective, since that's their prioritization as opposed to getting some early picks. But there's the first blood from Bugsy as soon as they make this realization and get their positioning right. Able to get it, but it's 93%. That's where it's going to stop right now for Navi.
And they have to hold on to this. Terminus going to be able to move in. Ruckus is going to be able to set up his turret defense. And this is the matchup. Carrying on the thread that Nick was saying, Creatives here on this Xin is a big proponent to killing off Fasheko's Drogoz. But if Bittner can keep Xin in check, then Fasheko runs free. And that's essentially what they have to do right here. And I think that's exactly why Bittner is taking this fight the way he is and kind of getting aggressive into it the way that he is.
It looks like both the teams are taking somewhat of an approach, Shoreline, where yes, you have those moments of aggression, but nobody wants to step too much out of bounds. Fasheko from downtown, lots of damage onto Lazy. That should get cleaned up as Bittner is the last one for that last hit. Creatives, lots of flexibility in his escape strategy, so can make it out alive, but it's 96 to 99% right now as overtime sets in. Dread Serpent does add that separation for Fernando to just get picked off by Bittner. In pursuit once again, Creatives this time, there's nothing that can save him, and Navi are short 3 members, which leave this capture to Fnatic.
I cannot describe what Bittner just did in any other words than saying that he just straight up executed Creatives. He jumped in, put the shotgun in Zin's mouth, and pulled the trigger. That was a little gruesome for the way he's playing it. Again, he's on fire right now with the way he's been going, and the team play around him and around Fnatic right now has been phenomenal. You see these moments, much like what was described on the desk during picks and bans, where Fasheko's the lockdown. You have Xin on one side, Cassie on the other, trying to pelt him, and he doesn't have anywhere to run, but he gets away because someone comes in and just creates a little bit of space for him, just a little bit of room for him to wiggle around.
All I need is a little bit to make that into a lot, but Navi right now, they actually have a decent amount in their arsenal if they want to, under this archway, make that their next holding spot. And a lot of it on that side near the hazard zone where you have that high ground, you'll often see the battle between the two teams. Bittner takes a bit of damage here, has to hop away in the meantime. But this is where you see Mutu, right? He wants to make sure nobody actually accesses through this corridor, but still has a general widespread view of the entire team in case a huge fight breaks out.
And you're in this I want to say, awkward position as both teams when it comes down to it. Fnatic, this is probably one of the harder points to actually kind of push past on Stone Keep. You have to get through this archway, which is very difficult. And Navi don't want to go past the archway on the other side because that's going to give the fight to Fnatic. You're both fighting on one side very distinctly, and when you do push forward, that's exactly what happens. Fasheko, Bittner, Jera all going down as the control swings into favor of Navi.
And this is the moment where, hey, I poked my head out. Is it going to work for me? Am I going to get punished? And it did work over for Navi. So if they can just hold this for a bit, I think they're still in for another fight, because the way that this map works is Fnatic, they'll probably take this attempt of working as a unit and like moving in slowly. But who knows? It's kind of just who's going to be executing properly. It's those minor moments of a shot missed here or there that could be the big game changer.
Seems to be the battle of the flanks right now. 4-1 is Creatives, 3-1 is going to be Bittner. But that's going to be a kill right there for Fasheko, trying to kind of, I want to say, line things up for his team as they get aggressive. That was a beautiful stun, and now the setup's there.
And there's the Immortal as well. Buck Wild activated, actually hops right into the corner to get some nice shots here into the barrack, but needs to get a few more to be able to kill him off. Finally does so. Navi down to only 3 alive, and some nice shots from Fasheko, though, as they actually get this push completed.
That was a moment between the two there. It's Buck versus Barrack. And you can tell both are kind of holding their breath when it comes down to it, because it's you're one hit, I'm one hit. And technically, Barrack has the better shot. He has one more shot before Bittner could fire off that last round. And it's that moment of, can he read where you're going to? And you could see Bittner kind of take like a step left and then a step right just to make sure that shot didn't connect. Again, small moments like that make a big difference, because then Bittner's alive. Bittner's able to continue going and continue rolling, and you've taken out a huge presence, not only just for the kill, but in the few seconds during that fight, there was no lazy presence on that payload.
A great fight from Fnatic. I think that they waited, they sent in Thiel first, and then once the Immortal was already popped and such, you saw the follow-up from the rest of the team. It was just enough of a succession of kind of staring your way into it that you didn't make everybody immediately vulnerable. And right now, Bittner's actually responding to this interesting rotation from Navi that they're taking again with a bit more spread, but Phoenix does manage to punish him for the time being.
I mean, round number 1, they were able to get up into the 90s on their percentage, so Navi, with comeback mechanic, definitely have an easier time of doing that, might be able to capture it, especially with Thiel going down right there. I don't feel a reanimate coming out from Thiel. It's just one of those areas where it's just too awkward. You do that, you're just going to die.
Especially when 24%, okay, maybe if it was a bit higher and you were closer to using that as the capture ending play, sure. But Navi, 85% right now. It is a bit of a risk because of that comeback mechanic. But Fasheko, he's got the Dragon Punch, doesn't actually hit, but does get himself a good eye onto a couple players from Navi who are forced to back off with the shield up on Phoenix. But it can only last so long, and Bugsy with the Hexafire, that angle's not going to get everything you need, though. Has to reposition himself and end early. Mutu with a double kill off of the back of that Dread Serpent, but they do lose their support. 89% to 78 so far. And it's just kill after kill after kill as another spite is used by Creatives to finish off that double.
And just being able to keep them all away. Bittner, I think, the only one really living through all of that. And he's a little bit too aggressive on that point, looking for a kill, never able to find it, and ends up getting cleaned up towards the tail end of it all by Mutu. So Navi captured the point. And there was a lot, again, that Navi did right to win that point. Using the comeback mechanic, again, you kind of have to force Fnatic to play on it, and they do that. And there's that Dragon Punch that comes through. Doesn't connect on anything, just because, hey, here's through time and space. If you want to punch him, you can, but it's going to kill you in the process.
The thing about Dragon Punch, and with Spite from Xin, is you see plays sometimes where it's either, oh no, they didn't hit, or oh no, they changed their mind, but they cover ground so quickly, or anything like that, where if these top players find a way to adapt that into the best situation possible, you often see, as opposed to freaking out about the actual scenery changing and getting thwarted by it. But right now, it's a couple picks actually on both sides. You got these just high-level players where Navi, they're attempting to push it through that gate that we were talking about before when it was the opposite end, and actually getting a few kills to boot, so they might be able to make it through this archway.
Being able to push forward right here. A lot of damage being dumped into Thiel. Power Siphon finally comes up, but they're going past the archway up into the area where they might be able to get this. 1 minute and 20 seconds left. You need pretty much a full wipe right now as Fnatic to be able to stop this.
They are so close to actually completing right now, and Thiel's waiting for his opportunity to slam on down. Does that into the face of the barrack. and Mutu has to keep this angle. Finds across the way, you see Fsheko, and he sees you too, but there's actually a nice spread coming from Navi, though you do lose Phoenix in the meantime.
Bugsy is low, Lazy coming around. He's already been healed right back up to the top. And this is one of those areas where it gets a little awkward, but Creative's Mutu picking up a couple kills here and there. If you can get rid of Thiel, you get rid of the big presence that's in front of you, and then you start to open up the conversation of converting this payload.
Oh, Lazy Baby gets slammed down by the Terminus, but manages to just whip himself away, put up the shield, and there is the Rockman in the sky. So Navi, sometimes you don't even have to kill them all off. You just send them elsewhere for the time being. So I just need a moment to finish off this payload. Just hang out up there for me, please.
And that's one of those moments. Void Grip is probably the best for it, but we've seen in the past, if you can even spite just to hold someone away from where you need them not to be, then you're in a perfect position. I'm using a lot of double negatives here in Stonekeep. I've realized it's been a long map. Not even.
Stonekeep just brings it out of you, man.
Stonekeep's a very negative area.
It's kind of nice looking. It's not one of those like broken down. It looks pretty
part
sweet.
of it is sturdy. Then the other part of it's being attacked by a plant.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to put it. all right, I see you. I feel like Stonekeep always just feels so classic to me, right? It's kind of this regal feel. But look, actually, this is the standard rotation we're used to seeing on Stonekeep that has been foregone for the first 2 rounds. And Mutu is able to put a couple shots into the back of the heads of the frontliners, but Bittner ends up actually just smacking him back. Creative's there to help with his team, but a double kill still nonetheless survived the interaction. But Phoenix wants to punish, gets 2 kills for himself as well, including 1 onto the enemy frontliner.
Bittner eats the spite of the face, lands, and then shotguns Creatives just for the last little bit of a touch. And again, they're on even footing this time, so no comeback mechanic. It's going to be the same old 3% every tick on this point, and that's going to take a little bit longer. 42% right now for Fnatic. And with the way they played that beginning and the way they kept everyone alive, they actually have a pretty good aggression to come back in and take a fight.
But the nature of this round being that very different feel, I don't think anyone is rushing to try and keep that up in the time being. Just getting enough picks so that now it's 60% and the dome shield as well. So Bittner and friends are going to have to wait before they can really push into that. Spunky, 1 shot away from death, finds it from the shotgun as now Bittner rotates to the rest of the team, passes past the shield, finds Lazy, has to heal himself up in the meantime, but it's just a couple down for Navi, and Fnatic are really wanting to contest.
Trying to get rid of Mutu, Lazy, Phoenix, both going down right there. The last one standing is the Kazi. Fsheko going to be able to step up and get the double kill this time around. 84-87. Fnatic looking to try and take this one away. All they need is a couple of dismounts, and they might not even need that.
Yeah, they got enough kills back-to-back where Navi couldn't find any way back towards the actual objective, and Fnatic getting their capture. Potential to end the game and the set right now if they manage to push this through. Fsheko just with some very extended reach when he decides to poke through those windows.
Good shots coming through. I like Bugsy's approach to this. It's one of those areas where, again, you don't want to jump past that arch too soon, but you kind of have to be able to pincer them, and that's exactly what he wants to do on this Ruckus. Get into that area where at least those rockets can connect and do some damage. Potential for a Hexafire here, there, anywhere that it might be a little bit more prevalent, but as it is right now, I expect that to be kind of the big game ender push.
Here we are, 1 minute and 45 to go on this push. Fnatic, I can see a world where they just try to dump all of their resources right now. There's a Dread Serpent actually to kick it off. Fsheko with a great angle to throw some of his fire, but now he sees Mutu too much right to the face, and that bow can't protect you now as Fishy puts in the last dagger to stop it. And here's a Dragon Punch as well. Rotate back into the fight, sees if he can find a target right on top of Lazy.
Being able to hit it, a couple more rockets right there. Double kill picked up for him. Shotgun's ready. Buck Wild is going through. That shield will not last long, and neither will Phoenix.
A little bit of a push, and Navi, Cassie down 2, and Fnatic, for the first time in a while against Navi, getting the 3-0 as opposed to Game 5 last point situation as we're accustomed to.
And I don't know if that was kind of an off day from Navi, but Fnatic were on fire. I can't count the number of mistakes they made in that game on one hand. Like, it was just so good from them overall. I think I misspoke during that last phrase, but either way, they played really, really well. That's the point.
Yeah, well, the point they got many, many times, enough to actually go ahead and close out that set. So Fnatic, they don't look like nothing is stopping them anytime soon. So Desk, what did you think?
I think Nick led me astray. I'm going to let you in on the behind the scenes. In prepping for this, Nick sends me a message and goes, yeah, this is going to be a really close matchup. Fnatic and Navi, they always go to 5. Buckle in, it's going to be a long one.
Crap, I picked Navi this week too. Rip, 100%.
What happened here, Nick?
I was 100% incorrect.
Hey, still 100% though. You already know.
I mean, what happened? So, I mean, there's a couple of things. I say coin flip because I can't think of a better word. There's obviously a lot of skill involved, but like those last couple of rockets from Fnatic, right? Like he hits like this little splash damage, like 100 damage, that like scares Mutu into his next 1,000 damage rocket, and then he hits like this 80-meter bomb, and that's like, well, there's the pick they needed to kind of gas pedal this push through. Another really unfortunate thing that happened was on this point fight earlier, Zin's Spite hits Bittner, and I mean he's already at like half HP, 60% HP. So you think that's done and dusted, but Buck's got a ton of damage reduction after his recovery. So Tenor ends up making it out of his Zen Spite with like literally 1 HP. He goes on to get more kills and have more impact in that fight. And it's like those types of little split-second decisions, just like you watch the play and you're like, well, that wasn't the wrong move by Navi, but it's just like this little hair-splitting moment that ended up sending that in favor of Fnatic. They get what they need. They know exactly when the opportunity presents itself. They hit the gas pedal and they cross the finish line.
It just felt like Fnatic and Bittner in particular in this entire set, but in that last game, I mean, it's Bittner just top damage again on Buck over and over and over again. And then, as you mentioned, Fnatic makes that great play to pick off the Cassie Mutu at the very end, and Navi is there like, we didn't do anything wrong. Like Fnatic
tough,
just
man.
made plays. You know what I mean?
Sometimes it's a good day like that, and especially that Tenor Buck that you brought up. It's like top damaging against 2 shielding frontliners. None of that damage counts on the charts against the Xin who's countering, who's billowing, who's not available to be targeted in the video game for very often.
Right.
It's like, where do you find this? Where does this come from, this damage? I don't know. I can't figure it out.
He's a beast on the Buck, that's for sure. Bittner and Fnatic and the rest of Fnatic continue to be undefeated. That puts them at 5-0. Navi going to try and bounce back. They'll go up against Ninjas in Pajamas next. We'll go to a quick break, and we'll see you real quick.